My family has held this farm for more than a century. It's a breathtaking stretch of countryside, rolling emerald hills, weathered fences, and a tall, creaking farmhouse that has watched generations be born, grow old, and pass on. A few years ago, to ease the financial strain of maintaining so much land, my grandfather agreed to sell a portion along the eastern boundary to a developer. Before long, a polished new subdivision appeared right beside us, complete with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and, of course, a homeowners association. But my grandfather was nobody's fool. When he signed the deal, he inserted one small but critical condition. He sold the bulk of the acreage, yes, but he retained ownership of a narrow strip of land that bordered the entrance to new development. It ran exactly beneath and around where they later built their grand "Welcome to Pleasant Meadows" sign. The HOA had permission to use it, but legally, that slice of property still belonged to our family. Over time, that little detail faded from memory. The residents forgot. Even the HOA board seemed to overlook it. When my grandfather passed, I inherited the farm. I love every inch of this place. The crooked oak trees, the old stone well, even the stubborn patches of weeds. But the HOA next door slowly became a constant irritation. And at the center of it all was the HOA president, a woman I'll call Karen. She appeared to take personal satisfaction in making my life complicated. At first, her complaints were almost laughable. She said my rooster crowed too early. She sent notes about the smell of cow manure, as if living beside a working farm would include that. I genuinely tried to be civil. I explained more than once that agriculture comes with certain realities. This land wasn't decorative. It was productive, but Karen had no interest in practical explanations. Soon, the letters became more formal, stamped with the HOA's logo and full of bolded warnings. She threatened fines. Fines for what exactly? For farming on farmland I owned outright. She criticized the red paint on my barn, claiming it clashed with the community aesthetic. She even lodged a complaint about the scarecrows standing in my cornfield, calling it an unsightly display. It would have been funny if it weren't so persistent. I'll admit, part of me started to find her outrage entertaining. She reminded me of a dramatic villain in a low-budget cartoon, always plotting, never succeeding. I'd tip my hat, give her a friendly wave, and carry on. That only fueled her anger. Then one morning, things escalated. Taped to my front door was an official-looking notice. It wasn't from any courthouse I recognized. It was from the HOA. The document claimed my farm violated multiple community standards and warned that if I failed to correct the issues within 30 days, they would pursue legal action to seize my farm equipment. Seize it for operating a farm. That was the moment my patience snapped. This wasn't harmless nagging anymore. This was a direct threat to my livelihood and to a legacy that had lasted over 100 years. Arguing with Karen was pointless. She never listened. So instead, I climbed into the attic and pulled out the boxes of property deeds and legal paperwork my grandfather had preserved. I spent an entire weekend surrounded by dust and brittle parchment, studying maps and deciphering dense legal terminology. And then I found it. The original land sale agreement. Buried within a clause was the unmistakable confirmation. The strip of land at the subdivision's entrance, the exact parcel beneath their large, decorative "Welcome to Pleasant Meadows" sign, remained under our family's ownership. That sign, the one framed by pristine flower beds Karen bragged about at every opportunity. It was standing on my property. A slow, mischievous idea began to take shape. The following Monday morning, instead of heading to the fields, I drove into town. I hired a small excavation crew with a compact excavator and a flatbed truck. Before doing anything, I called my attorney to verify the paperwork. He reviewed everything carefully and confirmed what I already suspected. The land was legally mine. I had every right to alter it as I saw fit. The plan was simple and deliciously satisfying. We arrived at the entrance to Pleasant Meadows just after sunrise. Without hesitation, the crew began digging around the base of the massive sign. It was quite a spectacle. The proud symbol of Karen's carefully curated kingdom slowly being loosened from its foundation. Residents stepped outside, whispering and pointing. Then, as if on cue, Karen's sedan screeched to a stop. She jumped out, fury written across her face. "What is going on?" she screamed. "Stop immediately. This is HOA property." I walked toward her calmly and handed her photocopies of the deed and the original sales contract. "Actually, Karen," I said evenly, tapping the highlighted clause, "the land you're standing on belongs to me. It always has. I've simply decided to redecorate." Her complexion drained of color. She grabbed the papers, scanning them frantically. The legal language left no room for argument. She looked at the partially unearthed sign, then back at me. Her mouth moved, but no words emerged. It was as if her world had tilted sideways. Suddenly, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed onto the perfectly trimmed lawn. A few neighbors rushed forward in alarm. Someone dialed for an ambulance. For a fleeting moment, I did feel a twinge of sympathy. But then I remembered the months of threats and harassment. The crew paused briefly, then resumed their work with professional focus. Within the hour, the enormous welcome sign was secured on the flatbed. And where did I instruct them to place it? Right in the center of my pigsty. The once pristine welcome to Pleasant Meadows sign now stood tilted in the mud, surrounded by cheerful, snorting pigs. It was, without question, the finest piece of petty revenge I had ever orchestrated. The fallout was spectacular. Karen was treated for what doctors later described as a stress-induced fainting episode and released the same day. Once the rest of the HOA board fully grasped the legal reality, their frustration turned toward her for escalating a battle they had no chance of winning. Within a week, she resigned as HOA president. Her replacement, a far more reasonable man, visited my farmhouse carrying a plate of homemade cookies and a sincere apology